All systems go. Clear for liftoff.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Week 6 College Football SHIPIT Nation Breakdown Show. My name's Bill. Put $1 in front of it. You'll find me on Discord and Twitter. And we have another great slate coming up. A few more blowouts than we sometimes see in these midseason slates, but definitely some good stuff coming up on the college football slate for Saturday. Just want to mention, look up there. There's a promo code. I'll show you how to use it. 5 days for just $19. So that's any all access monthly package. So if you go on to all access ultimate, the big one, it's $5 or $19 for 5 days. Why not try the big one? Go in, enter the promo code SHIP19. It will apply $19 for 5 days. And you're going to get a look at all of the content we have on SHIPIT Nation. We have NFL, college football, PGA swing season is still going. We still got MMA. So you're going to get a look at every single thing we do. And why would you want to do that even for $19? Well, let me tell you, we have winners at the top of the leaderboards every single week. Our boy Jay Walken with a big $100,000 win in NFL last week. He sent us a really nice message in Discord, but I mean, he's not the only one with big wins. We had a college football win for 17.5. R. Dag K. He's Donnie in our Discord. I don't know how he wants me to say this, but he's Donnie in our Discord. He's always live. This was a big college football win on the night slate last week. We had some MMA action, PGA action. So just another great week at the Nation. And if you want something for free, did you know we have a newsletter? We have the Nation News. Just go to our website, scroll down the main page, and you'll see an option to subscribe to the Nation News just to get a little sneak peek and preview of some of the stuff we have to offer here at SHIPIT Nation. And with all that said, let's jump right into the slate because we have a 12-gamer starting off with a big SEC matchup, a couple of juggernauts, Kentucky at Georgia. I would not be surprised to see Cutter Boley throw for less than 100 yards in this game, and that is honest. Zach Calzada is probable. I don't think it matters. I think it's Boley's job either way. Seth McGowan and Dante Dowdle have had a good run, but at those prices in this matchup, it's a tough click. And I'll just talk about these wide receivers for 5 seconds and say that 7 of them have a catch rate less than 50%. Kendrick Law and Jamori Macklin are maybe the 2 guys I consider, but that's disgusting. On the Georgia side, we have Gunnar Stockton, who's been fine, 8,200, probably a fair price, but it's still a little bit of a tough click. Just with the blowout narrative, could it just be the run game? Nice. The thing is, he is involved in the run game, so maybe you go to him for that. Nate Frazier fumbled again in their last game, and that's been a problem going back to last year. So Chauncey Bowens is a guy who stepped up. He had 119 yards against Alabama, and he has some upside here at 6,200 in this matchup. I know Kentucky does play a little bit more sloggy, but Georgia's just the better team here. And, you know, with the loss on their record, they're going to have to blow some teams out to make sure they stay in consideration for the college football playoff, even if they don't win the SEC. And then Josh McCray, he's just a red zone vulture. He'll get goal line carries and make you angry when you play Bowens or Frazier. Wide receiver room, Zachariah Branch and Kobe Young have kind of been the constants in the passing game. So you're probably looking at Branch just because he's discounted. But Dylan Bell is the other starter. And honestly, this is another situation where we could see Humphreys, we could see Delp. They could get a few more guys involved. Or we very well could see Young or Branch or Humphreys or Bell just have a spike game. And that's the reason Georgia gets up by so much if we see all that usage funnel. Like I said, if Kentucky does keep this close, it's going to be sloggy. So I don't know if Kentucky can score on Georgia, and that's why I say that. But really just looking at the Georgia side here. A much better game in the Big 12, Kansas State at Baylor. Just going to switch this quick because Bryson Washington's the one on the injury report. Just a 6.5 point spread, a high scoring game. And if Baylor can give up 450 yards and 27 points to Oklahoma State, Kansas State has to have upside here. Avery Johnson still has that dual threat ability. And we saw him use his legs a little bit more in the last game. And we've also seen some QBs run for a decent chunky yardage on Baylor. I'm thinking Jackson Arnold in the opener. Sam Levitt even had a decent game. So Avery Johnson does have some upside here, potentially even a cash play in the mid 7Ks. And one of the reasons that Avery Johnson has even more upside is because I think Dylan Edwards coming back in full force helps him. He had a huge game against UCF, 20-something carries for 166 yards. Baylor's defense is bad. They win games by scoring more points than the other team, not by stopping the other team. So there's a lot of opportunity here for both Johnson and Edwards. And then in this wide receiver room, Jace Brown's on the injury report, but he's probable after just playing 2 snaps last game. So he's a top option, even at 7,600. And then Jerron Tibbs and Jaron Bradley. Bradley had missed some time, but he's also off the injury report. So we expect their full wide receiver core here. And if you can't afford Brown, Tibbs and Bradley are nice secondary options for Kansas State in the game that's scripted to have a lot of points. On the Baylor side, like I said, their path to victory this season just seems like score 40 points or bust. Anytime they score more, they win. Anytime they score less, they lose. Sawyer Robertson has legitimate 400-yard upside, so even at 9,300, you're considering him. He hasn't been using his legs as much this year, but I don't think you need it if he's going to throw for 450 and 4, right? I already clicked the red marker on Bryson Washington. He is questionable on the injury report, so we're going to have to see what his status is once we get closer to game time. If we get an answer before then, obviously that'll be updated. But Caden Knight and Michael Turner are the next two up. It was Turner that got the work, the true freshman, over Knighton. Knighton did have a fumble, but they still had decent games. Knighton was helped a little bit more by a 50-yard run. But both of them have good upside here in the low 3Ks, even min price Michael Turner, if Bryson Washington doesn't go. Otherwise, if Washington's healthy, you're probably just looking at him. Good luck with this wide receiver room. Josh Cameron, the most consistent, at least 4 catches in 4 games, but Michael Trigg is probable to play. He's been very solid when healthy. Remember, he had 16 targets in that first game. Ashton Hawkins got the targets last week, but it only amounted to 2 catches for 15 yards. Cole Wilson has had a score in 2 straight games and was the target co-leader against Oklahoma State with Cameron. Kobe Prentice has a touchdown in 4 or 5 games and 5 total touchdowns. So all of that to say, it could be any one of these guys. They're probably MME play. I mean, not MME plays. I shouldn't say that. I could see a route where you overstack this game and have multiple receivers with Robertson or no receivers with Robertson and understack it and just play the quarterback thinking he's going to spread it out to everybody and then run it back with Kansas State guys. So a lot of different ways you can go with this game, a lot of points to go around. The one thing, like I said, we do know with Baylor is that Robertson's going to touch the ball every snap other than maybe a wildcat formation, which I don't even think they've run this year. So play Robertson, pick and choose your receivers or none of them, and then run it back with some Kansas State guys. It's a great option, a great game to target for DFS purposes. Iowa State and Cincinnati, a Big 12 matchup. We have a 1.5 point spread, so it's going to be competitive. I like competitive games because one more score on each side, and all of a sudden it's the highest scoring game on the slate. And we just saw Kansas put up huge numbers against Cincinnati. I mean, I know Iowa State doesn't run their offense like Kansas does, but Rocco Beck at 6,100. I mean, are you kidding me? He's got 20. He just needs 20 points, and he's already well over 3x at that price. So he's definitely got 20+ point upside. He could get to 30, and that would be a huge win for DFS purposes. This backfield, the Cyclones will still run 2 running backs out there with Hansen and Sama. Hansen got the heavier workload, but as you can see, he's $2,100 more expensive. But if he's going to get 18 carries and 2 to 4 targets in a game, which is what he's kind of been averaging over the last few, 6,500 isn't too bad of a price to pay. And then in this wide receiver room, Chase Sowell might finally have his S together. There were some rumblings that he wasn't quite 100% coming out of fall camp. And if you look at his progression, 3 targets, then 4 targets, then 5 targets, and now over the last 3 games, and now he's got 140 some yards in the last game. So maybe, just maybe, he's turning into the Higgins or Noel of last year. So especially after seeing what Emmanuel Henderson did to the Cincinnati defense, I mean, Chase Soul at 3,200 could end up being the steal of the slate if people aren't going to play him just based on box scores. You do have to consider Eskelson, Burkle, Bramer. They're all still involved and they're all cheap. But if Soul is more of a trend than a mirage, he's the guy to play on Iowa State in this passing game. You pair him with Beck and then play whoever you want the rest of the way. On the Cincinnati side, don't look now, but Brennan Sorsby is still in the 6K range. He's been anywhere from 3.4x to 5.9x this price the entire, like every single game. So I don't know why he's still priced at 6,800. Maybe they think this is a tougher matchup, but they still have the implied team total at 28. So I don't know why he's still this cheap. But his scores don't even count. The touchdowns he had, I swear, I was watching that Cincinnati game last week, and he had 5 touchdowns called back, maybe 6, maybe 7. It just seemed like every single drive he had to score 3 touchdowns to get 1. But again, still in a great spot, home favorite. He's cheap, and just dual threat. He's still the team's leading rusher, if I'm not mistaken, too. So that's something. Speaking of rushers, Cincinnati found out that if you use your star running back inside the 5-yard line or inside the red zone, you got a good chance of scoring a touchdown. Tawi Walker had 18 carries and 2 scores last week. So 5,600 is probably a pretty good price for him. And you can run on the Cyclones a little bit. So I don't mind that. Again, Cincinnati being at home definitely helps these guys out. Evan Pryor has had 6 carries in 3 straight games. So I'm just going to go ahead and predict that he's going to get 6. Now, the first game he did have 5. So there's still that chance that he doesn't quite get to 6. But he's been super effective. He even had 90 yards last week just on 6 carries alone. So definitely a backfield that you can consider at these prices. But man, just looking at it, did you play Cyrus Allen last week? Congratulations. 11 catches on 13 targets. We pegged him as wide receiver 1 before the game started, and he finally showed out. They had a couple of cake matchups. So that's kind of the point that I made last week, is that, they didn't need him. Last game they needed him, and it came through in a big way for DFS, kind of solidifying that wide receiver 1 status for him. After that, you got 3 guys who are just fairly consistent, still very involved in the offense. Caldwell and Goody had 7 and 6 targets respectively last week. Just with Caldwell, it only amounted to 3 catches for 27 yards. I do like him though, because he is huge. He's 6'5", 215, 220 pounds. So a big target. But if he's a big downfield target, that could lead to a few more, just more room for error, basically, and maybe why his catch rate wasn't so good last week. Joe Royer did lead the last game early, but he's not on the report this week. So I think you can count on him at least giving it a go. And the biggest thing with these guys is you just get a discount after Allen. But another game that I think could be sneaky, if you play the Beck Soul stack and run it back with a Sorsby Allen stack, that leaves a ton of room for the rest of your team with a lot of upside just in those 4 guys alone. Clemson at North Carolina. A lot of on-air production here this week. Guys that are mismarked. I should just unmark all of them. I can talk about injuries. You guys listen, right? Are you looking at these little red dots, or you just? I can tell you. Don't worry. All right, 14-point spread. At the beginning of the season, I would have thought this would be closer to a 3 to 4 touchdown game, but Clemson's underperformed. North Carolina sucks. Really, if Clemson can't get it done here, sell the team. I mean, can they do that? Can they sell the team? I'm a Minnesota Twins fan, so I've been hearing a lot of sell the team over the last 6 to 8 months. But Cade Klubnik, 8K, this might be a buy low spot. It's his lowest price of the season. And like I said, Clemson really needs to get it going. He's actually been decent for DFS. A couple weeks ago, he had 360 yards passing. The week before that, he had 17 rush attempts. So 8K is definitely fair for him, and I think the upside really is there. And, I mean, if Clemson wants a shot, other than winning the ACC, they need to put a pounding on every single team they play. Adam Randall might be the best running back play in this mid-range, or definitely in this game. I mean, he's up there with the running backs in this mid-range at 6,600. But 15 or more carries in 3 straight. He had 8 targets last time out. Definitely one of the better usage plays on the slate, if nothing else. And then these wide receivers, there's a lot of options here too with Antonio Williams back. Bryant Wesco still had 10 targets. TJ Moore had 16 targets He only caught 8 of them, and his catch rate has been a concern this year. But I mean, with 16 targets, who cares if you only catch half of them? That's 8 points just on catches alone. And Antonio Williams still had 9 targets. So they're all expensive, but for good reason. And it seems like with these 3 guys all healthy, that's kind of where the usage is going to be funneled in the passing game. But Randall seems more of the sure thing. And again, Klubnik touches the ball on every single snap and does have some rushing upside if that's the strategy they choose to employ against North Carolina. Speaking of North Carolina, Gio Lopez questionable coming into the game, but you could argue that Max Johnson should be starting this game regardless. The only reason you'd even consider him is that they're at home, and Clemson hasn't been great. Like defense, up until that Syracuse game, I don't think defense was necessarily the problem, but Syracuse found a way. And take notes, if Max Johnson plays more of a throwing quarterback than a running quarterback, maybe he can get something done at the cheapest quarterback on the slate. Both of them would be, depending on who plays, I believe. Damon June does seem to be RB1, but I don't know if you can get there in this game, especially at 5-1. These wide receivers, Jordan Shipp leads the pack, but he's still only averaging 4 targets per game. One thing is that Kobe Pacer did play a bunch of snaps, but it only amounted to 1 catch, 1 target last time out. And then there's obviously the connection if Max Johnson does start, his brother is a tight end, and you probably give him a little bit of a bump at 3,500, but you're mostly looking at the Clemson side here. Illinois at Purdue, one of the better games on the slate. It's a 9.5-point spread, but Purdue's at home. They could keep it close. Oh man, these red markers are going to give me a heart attack. Luke Altmyer. No, I didn't do that on purpose. Good grief. Just a mess this time around. All right. Luke Altmyer, priced up, but for good reason. 300-yard upside, easy in the passing game, and he's got some rushing upside as well. Illinois' passing game is slowed in blowout games, but if this game does stay competitive, they're going to be throwing the ball. And honestly, they could throw the ball to get ahead. So Altmyer's in a great spot here, even at 8,300. Caden Fagan is the clear RB1, it appears. I would not be surprised to see Lafferty or Khalil Valentine, bust one or get a big play at some point, or maybe mix in a little bit more if they get a hot hand. But Fagan is getting the usage recently. And again, if this does play out to script that Illinois gets ahead and they can run the ball a little bit more. In this wide receiver room, Malik Elsey's not with the program anymore, so it kind of opens up some usage for everybody. Hank Beatty's tops on the slate in targets, receptions, and yards. He's a clear favorite in terms of the Illini. 5,400, still too cheap for him. Colin Dixon's at a nice price. Obviously, he's in the 3K range, and it does appear that he is option number 2. His box scores have been padded a little bit by big plays the last couple of weeks, but in case you're wondering, big plays and touchdowns count for DFS points too. So if he's going to get one big play and or a touchdown every game, the upside is always there at 3,300. With Elzy gone, Justin Bowick, he may slide into that. They play the same position, so he could see an increase in usage, but he only has 9 catches on 11 targets this year, but 4 of them are for touchdowns. So if we do see that sort of consistency, I don't think he'll stay at that rate, targets and catches to touchdowns ratio. But if he's going to get a bump in usage, we know that Altmyer will throw the ball to him when he's on the field. And then Hudson Clement is he's on the field enough to stay on your radar. All these guys are too cheap. Like Beatty's even too cheap, and the rest of the guys are cheaper. So definitely loving this Illinois side of the ball. And I don't mind the Purdue side of the ball either, because even in bad games, like against good teams, Ryan Brown's putting up solid numbers. And obviously we saw the Indiana game, but other teams have put up numbers against Illinois too. So this could be a solid spot for a quarterback in the 6K range. Ryan Brown can run a little bit. And we'll also have to keep an eye on who's playing in the Illinois secondary, because he may be going against second and third stringers in a few spots. So don't mind Ryan Brown. Good spot at 6,600. Devin Mockabee, you play him for his involvement and usage. Even with fewer carries the last couple of games, he had 7 catches against Notre Dame. So nothing like really jumps off the page. He's just always like 5,400. He's going to get you somewhere from 13 to 17 points, and you're going to seal it up and go home. But there is the upside there. With opportunity comes upside, and Devin Mockabee definitely has the opportunity. And then this pass catching room, Michael Jackson is like probably the safest of the pass catchers, and at 3,600 for a wide receiver one, you're going to always be looking at that. Nitro Tuggle has been trending the right direction the last couple of games with 7 combined catches in the last 2, and he's got touchdowns in 3 straight. So again, 3,100, 1 touchdown almost gets you to 3. It gets you to 2x, and that doesn't even include the yards and the reception that goes with it. But a guy like Branch, a guy like Horton, those guys could spike at any time. And then George Burhan exited the Notre Dame game. Doesn't look like he's going to go, so we might see some Christian Moore, Rico Walker. But that is not something that excites me. And then we're moving on. Staying in the Big Ten, Wisconsin at Michigan. Actually, I'm going to get a drink of water before we get to this. So actually, it's a good time for you to hit the like button. Hitting that like button does help us out quite a bit, and it allows us to continue to provide free content on YouTube. And that's something that we're always going to do. But that like button really does give us an easier route to be able to do that. And I needed that water. So hopefully that was enough time for you to find it. 1 click, boom, liked. We move on to Wisconsin and Michigan. Playing Billy Edwards seemed like a mistake. It almost seems like they did it because he was playing his former team, but he did not look good and he did not look healthy. Maybe he was playing coy about how hurt he actually was. But it's going to be Danny O'Neal. I don't like it, even at 5,500. Dylan Jones is a question mark for the Badgers as well. If he's healthy, we'll see 3 running backs. I don't even know if I like this if it's a 2-headed attack. The one part of this game that you might play is the cheap wide receivers, Lance Mason and Tretch Kakahuna. Tretch had 8 targets last game, and Lance Mason's been solid. And they have a lower average depth of target than a guy like Vinny Anthony, so easier passes to complete. So the pass catching upside is there with the points per reception. But with that, Vinny Anthony has the big play opportunity. So if they do hit one big one, he can get there. But it's just not really a good matchup. And plus Tucker Ashcraft might be back. So we'll have to watch that status. That could throw a wrench into everything. On the Michigan side, the Wolverines are at home. But outside of Alabama, Wisconsin's problems haven't really been on the defensive side of the ball. Bryce Underwood's priced fine. He does have upside at 6,900. Nice. I think you can get there, especially with this 30-point team total. I don't mind the spot for him at home. Justice Haynes has been a stud all year, at least 100 yards and a score in every single game. And this, like I said, Wisconsin's defense is good, but this matchup doesn't necessarily scare me as much for Haynes just because he was able to put up those numbers against Oklahoma and Nebraska. Now, Nebraska, better pass defense than run defense, but still a Big Ten team and probably better than Wisconsin. The only thing you have to consider is that Underwood does run some and could eat into Haynes' usage or snipe a touchdown, and Jordan Marshall's going to mix in as well and could steal a score. So if you play Haynes, just be ready for Marshall or Underwood to steal that touchdown away. Wide receivers, the target share isn't really a concern. It's more so the catch rate. McCulley and Goodwin get targets, but their catch rates are both below 50%. Another instance where like Samaj Morgan is not getting the usage necessarily of the production, but his average depth of target is so much lower that his catch rate is higher. You get a point per reception, so on and so forth. And then you got Marlon Klein, still one of my dark horse. He might be the best pass catcher on this team, especially if you factor in his athleticism and build. But you're rolling the dice that this is the game that it comes to fruition. But it does seem like you're going to want a piece of this offense. Haynes is probably the safest. And then if you pick the right wide receiver, again, more cheap guys. And if the run defense for Wisconsin does stay stout, playing this Michigan passing game, especially somebody like Klein or Samaj Morgan is a good way to get different. Oklahoma State at Arizona, big spread. Oklahoma State, I don't know if you've been watching them on social media, but if you have, it's transfers and decommits left and right since Gundy got fired. So they're kind of a mess. One of the coaches said Haas Haney could be returning in the coming weeks, and that was a quote. But he's out, so it doesn't matter. I didn't even need to say that. That was pointless. I'm just wasting time. This is why my dang videos run so long. I say things that don't matter. But we got Zane Flores again. Does not excite me even at 5,900. He does have some slight rushing upside if he doesn't get sacked, but I wouldn't be surprised if he gets sacked a lot in this game. Rodney Fields probably made a lot of people angry last week. He had 46 snaps, but he didn't. I mean, okay, so he had 5 catches, but the week before he was the workhorse in the run game. But this last game, it was Trent Holland. Even though Holland had 22 fewer snaps, he had 16 carries. So you could take a guess at what this backfield's going to look like. You could probably play either of these guys at this price. There is a chance Freddie Brock is back. He's on the injury report again, but he's either questionable, maybe he's even probable, but I don't know. And I don't think you can look at these wide receivers. It's a different guy every week, it seems like. Like Gavin Freeman's the safest, but that's still a tough click with all of the wide receivers in the 3K range. There's a lot of 3K wide receivers this week. I know we usually have a decent amount, but it just seems like a ton. There's still more to come, too, I promise. Arizona, Noah Fafita, probably still too cheap for 8,800. Anyone going up against Oklahoma State, they should just automatically make the quarterback 10K if the quarterback has a pulse and is worth a darn. The downside would be the Wildcats running more. I mean, they could with this running back room that they have. Ishmael Mahdi is kind of taking over the backfield. Even in a bad matchup against Iowa State, he got 85 yards on just 13 carries, so he's efficient too. And he's also getting a couple of catches per game. So 6,100 is that's up there with Adam Randall as far as like these mid-tier options. Those might be the top 2 guys in the 6Ks when it comes to running backs. Craig could still work in some. 3,800. It's just, I don't know that it's even at that price, it's enough. And then one thing is like Kedrick Riscano he hasn't played since week 1, but he wasn't on the injury report last week and still didn't play. So I don't really know how much he's even going to be involved. But Mahdi's the guy here. In this wide receiver room, Jalen Watley's still getting the targets, but outside of the Weber State game, he really hasn't produced a whole lot. But again, Oklahoma State might be a better matchup than Weber State was. Chris Hunter, sort of in the same boat. Solid target share, not much to show for it. But some positivity for this Arizona pass catching room. Chris Hudson ran 45 routes and had 10 targets last week. And I think this is probably more of a trend than a mirage, just based on his talent when he was with Washington State and Oregon. I would not be surprised to see him as wide receiver 1 moving forward. So 5,500 is a fair price if he is going to continue in that role. And then Trey Spivey is the only other thing I'll mention, just he's questionable. And if he plays, that could eat into some of these other guys. Luke Weissong had a decent workload last week too. Olsen is considered the starter, but Weissong is the guy who got the work. Boise State at Notre Dame. Big spread, but I mean, still a 62.5 point total in this game. So it seems like they think Boise State can score and still get blown out. Madsen was banged up against Air Force, still had a really effective game, but we do have to account for some big plays that helped him. But he also had 320 yards against Appalachian State. And Notre Dame has been vulnerable through the air. So if you're going to get them here, because Texas A&M had 360 yards. Purdue also had more than 300 yards through the air. So if you want to find a reason to play these Boise State guys, even if it's not just a run back, if it's a full-on game stack, that's something I would look at. Dylan Riley, everybody should know who he is by now because he exploded he had a huge game against Air Force. And the coaches are raving about him. He came back down to earth a little bit against App State, but he still had 16 carries, which was more than Sire Gaines had. And Malik Sherrod had fewer than 10 carries in that game. So it kind of seems like the pecking order is Riley, Gaines, Sherrod. And Riley is still only 4,400, and he's involved in the pass game too. So if you're going to play Matthew, you can honestly stack Madsen and Riley together if you think Boise State can score points. In this wide receiver room, Latrell Caples is like the clear number 1 guy in terms of usage in this passing game. He's got 8 or more targets in 3 of the 4 games they played. And then you got Lauder, Marshall, and Ford, who all work in. You just have to weigh the level of competition they've had thus far and how facing Notre Dame on the road affects that. Again, Notre Dame is one of those teams that with the loss and now they don't have, or 2 losses, and now they don't have a very difficult schedule the rest of the way. They really, really need to beat these teams bad for consideration because they don't have a conference championship game. So they need to pulverize some of these teams, and Boise State just happens to be the one in the crosshairs. So On the Notre Dame side, just can you play them all? How many guys is too many Notre Dame guys? CJ Carr had a huge game against Arkansas, and yes, he's priced up, but this is a pristine matchup. Jeremiah Love, I'm going to say the same thing I do about these guys every week. I love Love for the usage, and I love Price for the price. He's probably like Price probably isn't priced right. Love is actually accurately priced, but he's still the other thing I don't understand. He's still only 12th in Heisman voting. But Love into Price, play either of them. Heck, maybe play both. Honestly, they could both score 30 points, and it wouldn't surprise me. Still pretty spread out in the wide receiver room for the most part. But Jordan Faison has gotten the usage the last couple of games. But honestly, watching Malachi Fields last week, he's huge. I don't know how anybody can stop him. He looks like a truck with hands. But yeah, I looked at the screen a few times. And I'm like, who is that tight end? But it wasn't a tight end. It was Malachi Fields. And I mean, I knew he was a big dude, but I don't know if it's the way he's wearing his shoulder pads. He just seemed bigger last week. Raridon's still involved. We've seen upside from Pauling, Greathouse, used a little bit more sparingly. But you can mix and match these receivers. More guys in the low 4s and 3K range. So if you want to stack them, stack it with a Carr Love Fields or a Carr Price Faison or any combination of those guys. Like I said, they've historically spread the ball out a ton, but Carr getting his feet under him for the season might start to fall in usage a little bit more. Vanderbilt at Alabama, maybe the most interesting storyline in this slate of games because of what happened last year. I do feel like Alabama has had this game circled ever since those field goal posts were going down Broadway last year after the upset. Diego Pavia at 7,100. I mean, if anybody can do it, it's him. 7,100 is a fair price. He finds so many different ways to get there. He's a big reason they beat Alabama last week. But so far this year, they've just absolutely crushed bad teams and been pretty mid. He's been pretty mid against the Power 4 schools, but he's also the team's leading rusher. And speaking of those rushers, Cedric Alexander hasn't been used a ton the last couple of games. It could be rest, honestly, because of the teams they played. He was getting double-digit carries before that, but it's hard for me to pick up any of these Vanderbilt running backs unless you're really hitting that game stack in a bunch of different ways. And then this wide receiver room, Eli Storrs has been Pavia's favorite target going all the way back to their time in New Mexico State. More of the same this season. Another sub 4K pass catcher, maybe the best play on the team. Outside of one game, Trey Richardson's getting a ton of looks as well, 500 cheaper than Storrs yet. And then Sherrill and Hoskins also involved. Cheap. Every wide receiver is cheap this week. Well, actually, wait till we get to the Alabama side. I guess they're not. Speaking of Alabama, Ty Simpson is the underpriced guy this week. One of the top quarterback plays on the slate. I don't understand why he's 7,300. He's been absolutely awesome. He's got the supporting cast around him to help him get there, even if he has a somewhat down game. And then Jam Miller resumed his role as RB1 almost right away. He had 16 carries against Georgia and 3 catches. It didn't really amount to much, but A, it was a tough matchup. B, it was his first game back. So I definitely wouldn't be surprised to see that production increase with the usage that he has. But Kevin Riley still did have 10 carries, but it seems like he's going to be the clear RB2, but he's priced up at 5K, which, for his current role, I think you'd want to see him a little bit cheaper to consider. Speaking of cheaper, Jeremy Bernard, 6,900. Nice. It's too cheap. He honestly should be priced right around Ryan Williams. There's a very good chance he outscores Williams. I mean, Williams can obviously spike, but Bernard has been the guy this year. I mean, Williams was out for a couple of games, so you got to factor that in. But even with Williams back, I mean, they're both going to get a heavy target share. I don't think I need to elaborate much more than that. Isaiah Horton, though, did have his best game of the year, and he has a touchdown in 3 straight games. So definitely somebody you consider if you need to go a little bit cheaper yet and still want to get a piece of this Alabama offense. Oof, Texas at Florida. Good grief. This is just going to be kind of a boring game. It might be a good real life game. It might be hard to watch though. Arch Manning at 9K. It's a slate play. I don't know if you can get there with all of like the other quarterbacks we've already talked about and a couple more that are still to come. Florida is in Ohio State, but Gainesville is still a tough place to play. So I don't know. I just don't think I can get to 9K for Arch here. I mean, if Texas has a ceiling game and you want to stack it, fine. But You'd be different. I guarantee you'd be different. Trey Wisner is probable and CJ Baxter's doubtful. So what that means for this backfield in his first game back, I don't necessarily know, but he should be running back one, and we know he's good enough to put up 25, 30, 35 point DFS games. It's just a matter of how heavy his workload is, because I would still imagine Gibson and Clark are going to work in. So maybe we see like a 13 carry, 2 catch game for Wisner. Is that enough for him to get there? Absolutely. But at 6,400 with some of the other running backs we mentioned, just another tough click. And then the wide receiver room, Ryan Wingo's getting the targets, but he still has a pretty concerning catch rate at just 45%. DeAndre Moore and Parker Livingston are cheap, and they're still very involved. Jack Endries, another guy, he's just a little bit more expensive. He had a couple of touchdowns that really boosts his box scores, but really looking at those top three, just again, tough to click Wingo at 75 when Jeremy Bernard is 69, sitting right up there. The other thing to consider with Texas is that Emmett Mosley is listed as probable on the injury report, and he hasn't played yet this year, but he was a top option for Stanford last year. So whether he becomes a factor in this offense, it could play a factor in the usage if he does get some snaps and a couple of targets. Even 2 targets taken away from one of these other guys could mean the difference between getting there and not getting there. On the Florida side, I'm not going to say much. Jaden Baugh is catching my eye just because of the usage he's about to get at 5,300. Jacoby Jackson's already listed as out, and there just really hasn't been anybody else. So Baugh might play every single. I don't think. Man, could he play every single snap? I mean, he's good. He's very good. He's an effective runner, and he's involved in the passing game the last couple of weeks. So at 5,300, I might consider him. And these wide receivers, Dallas Wilson is a little bit exciting because he's a 5-star true freshman who flipped from Oregon to Florida late, and he should be making his debut this weekend. And then another freshman, Vernell Brown, obviously still there. We know about him. You could take a chance on Eugene Wilson. It's just not really a good-looking game for these Gators. Virginia at Louisville, a much better game to be looking at. Virginia with the big emotional win could mean a letdown in this follow-up game at Louisville. Maybe, maybe not. Chandler Morris, probably too cheap, still a dual threat. He was great in the win over Florida State, and this is another good spot for him, especially with the team total in the high 20s. Jamari Taylor also had a stellar game. He just missed a 100-yard bonus by a yard, but he's a little bit expensive. Again, just compare him to the other running backs on the slate. Do you want to pay 69 for him, or do you want to go up to Haynes at 8,000, or do you want to go down to one of those lower 6K range running backs? And he's still a decent option, especially if you're game stacking this game. I would definitely keep him under consideration for your pool. I mean, say with Xavier Brown, just he's still involved enough, and we saw him get a touchdown last week. You need a little bit more than just a touchdown at 4,700, but not the worst option. And the wide receiver room, I mean, Cam Ross is getting 7 targets a game. He just hasn't found the end zone since the first game, so he's due, right? And at 4,400, just another cheap receiver. Terrell Harris isn't far off, a little bit of a letdown last week. But even Edrine and Twitty, you can consider any of these guys. They're involved in the passing game. Another one where you can mix and match your game stacks if you're going to go heavy on this one. On the other side, Miller Moss was a stud for us last week, and I do think he's in a spot to do it again, but now he's just $2,000 more expensive. I would like him to have a little bit more rushing upside at this price, but even at 7,900, in terms of this slate, it seems like there's better options, but there's no reason that Moss couldn't end the day as the highest scoring quarterback. And then this running back room, Duke Watson and Isaac Brown are both on the injury report again, but they're both probable. Both played last week. Brown had about 20 more snaps, but Duke Watson was far more effective. So they're both in that 6K range. It's tough to play either of them. But again, in this, if you stack it, you could play either of them, or I wouldn't play both of them. That's a lot of money for those two guys, but there's definitely routes that either of them could get there. The only thing that might throw a wrench is that Keywan Brown is questionable, so it's something we have to monitor. And again, I don't know that it makes Keywan Brown playable if he plays. I think it just tempers the upside of Watson and Isaac Brown. The upside that's probably not going to be tempered by anything except for how well Miller Moss can throw on the ball is is Chris Bell and Colin Lacey. After that, you're kind of on your own with this wide receiver room. They have 23 and 22 catches. Bell and Lacey do, and the next closest pass catcher has 8. And Bell and Lacey also have big playability, and we could see Lacey run the ball a little bit as well. So those are the two guys you're stacking with Miller Moss. Last week, it would have worked just fine to stack both of them. So a good spot here all around for Virginia and Louisville, barring any sort of letdown from the big win last week with the Cavaliers. And just another great game to target. And then the last game on the slate, Penn State at UCLA. Penn State back at the Rose Bowl again, just this time for far fewer marbles. Coming off the big loss to Oregon, tough game for them in the whiteout, but a good opportunity to bounce back. Even though I don't really care for this travel, it's not as bad as going from West Coast to East Coast. Drew Aller in a great spot here, but he might be the most overrated quarterback in college football. I don't think he's worth $8,500, but if you were ever going to give him this price tag, I think this would be the game to do it. I know they priced him up there other times too, but if any game is deserving of it, it's this one because UCLA is terrible. The upside's definitely there in this matchup. That'd be the only reason I'm considering him. I just don't think he's that good at football. Not good enough to be Penn State's quarterback anyway. What's with these running backs? Why is Katron Allen $2,700 cheaper than Nick Singleton? I get Singleton's been on the field a little bit more. He's gotten a little bit more usage, but definitely not $2,700 worth. So I think this is a great buy low spot on Allen and a good matchup. Even if they split 50-50, Katron Allen can easily get there at $5,700. And then this wide receiver room, it could be any of them. I mean, they're all priced in a similar range. All of them may have a ceiling of 30 points in a game like this. Trevor Pena, there's been rumblings that they're going to use him like Tyler Warren. We just haven't quite seen it yet. Kyron Hudson, the USC transfer, is a solid option. He's had a couple of big games. Luke Reynolds is the fill-in, not the fill-in. He's a starting tight end now, but he could replace Tyler Warren. And then Devontae Ross, I've seen him in the end zone. I think I just saw it last week, matter of fact. So if he's going to be on the field, I think if you're going to be on the field in this game, you have upside. So play Penn State a bunch of different ways, really looking at that side of the ball. On the UCLA side, new coach, who dis? Not only did they fire their head coach, they basically got rid of their entire offensive staff. And now we have Jerry Neuheisel calling the plays. You might recognize the name Neuheisel, but I recognize him more because he looks like Kit Pardue. In case you don't know who that is, it's Sunshine from Remember the Titans. Look it up. Jerry Neuheisel, Kit Pardue. Anyway, back to football. Nico might be the second best quarterback in this game, and that's saying a lot based on what I just said about Drew Aller. The running backs I'm not touching, it's tough to touch those running backs in any game, really. But and then these wide receivers, Quasi Gilmer's been the guy, but Rico Flores is back last week, and he was on track to be wide receiver 1 last year before he got hurt. And in his first game back, he had 5 targets. So if you're going to look at somebody, maybe it's a min price Rico Flores if you do want any sort of a run back, but 12.5 point team total. Don't think we need to go there. But anyway, that is the slate. I hope you have gotten something out of all of my rambling, enjoyed my stupid little jokes, and heck, maybe even click the like button. But for now, we're going to finish with rule number 1 as we do every week. Rule number 1, college football is fun. Enjoy the process. Enjoy building your lineups. Enjoy the sweat. Just be so grateful that we have the opportunity to watch college football on our TVs and play college football DFS. And most importantly, don't take a single day for granted because we do not get enough of them and we never know when it's going to be our last. I will see you in the streets this weekend. Let's go out there and ship one for the big guy.